Some of you who were at the TEL workshop when I talked about using Facebook, some of this might be a wee bit repetitive, but I think I've perhaps come at it from a little bit of a different angle. Just to provide a little bit of background about me, as Ellie said, and as you can hear, I'm from Australia. And in 1992, I joined a university called the University of Southern Queensland. And the University of Southern Queensland was and still is a leading distance education institute and has international recognition for excellence in that space. So I was sort of from very day one, I actually didn't really know a model where my teaching was just on campus. From day one, only 1/3 of my students were on campus, 2/3 of my students were distant students. So as you can imagine, back in 1992, we were still working with what we called the old correspondence model, where the students got a great big fat study book to read, a great big book of readings, sometimes 2 huge books of readings. If they were very lucky, they got an audio tape with some explanations of some things. And then if they were super lucky, they might get a telephone conference a couple of times during the semester, usually around assessment time, to answer some of their questions. So just to step back from 1992, I actually commenced my degree as a distance education learner in 1988. So I was at home with 4 children and I was wondering what to do with my life, and I decided I needed to do something with a brain, which I knew I had, but I hadn't really used to that point. And I thought, well, what do I enjoy doing? And I thought, I really enjoy shopping. So I looked for a degree course that was something in the field of what I enjoyed doing, which I think is a good idea, and I ended up doing a degree in marketing. So my undergraduate degree was done completely distance education. In fact, it was 3 years into my degree until I had any contact whatsoever with a lecturer. And that was because for 3 years I'd worked at home with my correspondence books, with the clunky old computers we used to have, and, you know, packaged up my assignments. I can't even remember how I did them. I think we printed them and posted them off, and then we got them back in the post. So it was a really old model. It was so long ago now. And it was in my 3rd year that I came across an assignment that I really was stressed out about. And I was, you know, almost in tears about it because I was a complete overachiever. And my husband said, for goodness sake, Dawn, why don't you ring them up? So I rang up my lecturer and he was just so helpful. But it was 3 years in, so I certainly understand the loneliness of the long distance learner. And so I've got a great affinity for those students, whoever they are, on campus students or external students or online students, that sense of not feeling connected. That sense of sort of being out there on your own, studying on your own, and not having that connectivity, which I think is just so important to lifelong learning and to enjoying your learning and to engagement. So when I joined USC in 1992, we were still having meetings because there wasn't emails, you know, we actually used to see each other face to face. And then over time, of course, technology kicked in, and we were obviously one of the first users of things like WebCT and Blackboard and whatever, and those types of platforms. And so I've been through a million different learning LMSs, Moodle and Vista, and, you know, I can't even remember the iterations of learning management systems that I've had to endure. Video conferencing, you know, Illuminate, Adobe Connect, Wimber Create, blah, 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 blah. If I could count the hours I've spent in training, trying to learn how to use some of these things, and all of the failed experiences I've had with them, I could probably write a book, but that would be exceedingly boring. So that's sort of my background. But in 2003, the University of Southern Queensland came to this realisation that no longer could we afford to print all of this stuff. And it was when, you know, things were starting to get really edgy about environmentally friendliness and all this wasted paper, and, you know, there was this technology. And so the university then decided that they would go on what they called transmodal education, and later hybrid. They had all these different names for it. But it was basically using online technology to supplement the correspondence. So the first thing we did was, rather than sending out big books of readings, we sent out PDFs or some type of documents uploaded onto a CD. So the students got a CD instead of a book. But essentially they got the same thing. One way, text-based, read, write, delivery. So back in so it was about 2003, and I don't know what was going on in my head at that stage, but probably something crazy, because I decided that if I was going to put things on CD, well, why couldn't I just embed some videos or some audios or some pictures or something a bit more exciting than just a print-based delivery? So I started to develop little things, what I called back then learning objects, which might be an interactive diagram, or it might be an online quiz, or I toyed with crosswords for a while. I actually quite enjoyed doing crosswords. Interesting because with a crossword, for example, if I said to you, what is marketing, you could give me a nice answer. Well, some of you could, some of you couldn't. Some of us teach marketing, so hopefully we could. But if I said to you, the process of identifying consumers' needs and wants and developing market offerings that best satisfy those needs and wants, what is that? You do, well, what the hell is that? Oh, okay, that's marketing, and then you put it in the crossword, marketing. You see the back to front learning?
Yeah.
I actually find it quite useful using crosswords, because you, instead of asking students to describe a word, you show them a concept and say, what is that? And they have to think backwards. Quite interesting. Anyway, apart from that, so interactive diagrams and all sorts of things I started to play with, and eventually became, I guess, a bit of a pioneer in terms of that sort of online education. And things have progressed, obviously, in the field of online education quite significantly since then. So one of the things that a couple of years before I left Australia, actually, I moved to a different university who didn't have online, and then of course I had to help them with their online. Then I moved here and I'm doing the same thing. But that seems to be my journey through life, is getting things from print and face-to-face onto online, and that's fine with me. But a year or so before I left Australia, I discovered personally Facebook. And I loved it. I just loved it. I loved being able to see pictures of my grandchildren. I loved being able to find out what my naughty children were up to, until my son blocked me off his Facebook because I told him off for using the N-word, so he blocked me. But I'm back on it again now, but he's a bit cautious about what he says on Facebook these days. So I just loved it. I thought, this is great, really engaging, and I had, as you know, Australia is a very big continent. My parents and my sister lived in Adelaide in South Australia. My brother lived in Sydney. I had colleagues, all over Australia. So this allowed me to stay really connected and engaged and feel that sense of belonging, I guess, that I was part of a social community, that even though my busy life of going to work and teaching and whatever, I could still remain connected with my family and friends. And it wasn't long after that I thought, well, why not use this for my teaching? Why not for my student group start creating Facebook pages? And I didn't create a Facebook page for my online courses. I actually created it for my on-campus courses. And what I found, I started teaching a subject called social marketing, and it was a brand new subject that I actually had to develop. And so I was looking to the student, I was being a bit naughty really. I was hoping that the students would find good YouTube videos, good links, good articles, resources for me to populate the course. So I thought, right, I'll create this Facebook page and I'll get students to upload links and articles and things for me, and then I'd steal them, which is exactly what happened. A slight difference though. I do think that the engagement with social media may be somewhat culturally defined, and I'm really interested to have a look at this. Because with my social media use of Facebook in Australia, I find if I posted something, nearly all of the students on my course would like my comment. Many of them would respond, and quite a lot of them would upload things. My experience with social media here hasn't been the same. The students seem quite reluctant to like, and they certainly seem quite reluctant to upload things. So Elvira and I are very interested in this. Why does this happen? So we might be looking at some of that. It might be quite interesting to do some cross-cultural things about what does this mean? Why is that? And so I'm challenged here with social media to try and get the students more engaged. So another thing that Elvira and I have been talking about is intervention strategies. What sorts of things will get them more engaged? What can we do with our social media to get the students to be more active in that space? So they're the things that I'm toying with at the moment. So what I say to you is I'm not an expert in the use of social media. I'm just a big player in the space, and I'm learning, and I'm hoping to learn a lot from you as well, and we'll talk later about barriers and drivers and how we could use social media, and hopefully together we can learn more about how we can make this thing work. Alright, so that was a huge introduction. So what I wanted to talk to you about in this session, just to kick off our conversation, is this idea of this sort of new digital learning paradigm called connectivism. So we've moved beyond constructivism, where students, engage and share examples and come up with shared meaning and consensus of meanings, to a world where we realise that that learning is about being connected in nodes. So we'll talk about that. I'll talk about how I've used Facebook and wikis to some extent. I've just been confessing to several, isn't it? Several, yeah. That I'm useless with Twitter, and she's going to help me with it. I really haven't mastered Twitter, so if any of you are experts in Twitter and you've used it in your courses, please just interject with your ideas and examples. Because when Stephen made that comment about emails for your grandfather and Facebooks for your auntie, I'm sitting there going, okay, so I'm the auntie, right? Having said that, you know how Facebook's 10 years old. I saw a news clip only a couple of days ago about Facebook, and young people are actually still quite actively engaged in Facebook. It's not yesterday's thing at all. I find that LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, they're used differently. It's not actually which one's best or which one's better. For me, Facebook works better. Several raised the issue of 140 characters in Twitter. That might cause a bit of a problem. If I want to upload something about the student's assessment onto Facebook and say, look, why don't you consider using tables? You can use them in this way. They're not included in the word limit. Make sure you add some narrative. My 140 characters have gone very quickly, whereas in Facebook I can upload quite a long thing if I want to. So I think you use them differently. But I've got in my diary for Sunday, Dawn, learn how to use Twitter properly. So, and I've already lined up an appointment with several so she can show me how from a young person's perspective, because as you probably worked out, I'm pretty old and I've got grandchildren, so I don't really understand this well. So we'll make sure that we embed our practice in good pedagogy. So we'll talk about the issue of design principles, the role of the educator, and then we'll talk about drives and barriers and whatever, so hopefully it'll just be free-flowing. So this is this notion of connectivism. So when I won a fellowship about 3 years ago, e-learning fellowship, where I had to write my own sort of blog of my own experience in developing learning materials. So even though I did my doctorate in education in online learning and a master's in online learning, I thought to myself, maybe I better go back and have a look at the recent literature. And I discovered this thing, because I was working in the constructivist model. Do you know what I mean by that? Sort of that socio-constructivist model of shared learnings, consensus of meanings, etc. And I went back to there and I suddenly, constructivism has been superseded by this thing called connectivism, and I thought maybe I should learn a bit more about it. I don't know that it's really motored along very much. Is anybody else been familiar with this paradigm? Yeah? So I think it'd be interesting to see where this is going. But basically it's about the fact that learning is a building of networks and information and contexts. So it's understanding that the students don't get all their information from a textbook anymore, and they don't get it just from me. I'm not the font of all knowledge. In fact, I take a very different perspective from my students. I learn from them. And when I talk to my students, I say things like, I'm going to enjoy learning with you, not I'm going to enjoy teaching you. I don't even think that way. I really know that I learn a lot from my students because particularly with our 4th level students, they do this year of placement in industries and companies that I've never been exposed to before. They bring such a wealth of experience and knowledge. They find things, articles and things that I could never hope to find because I just don't think in the same way they think. So I learn so much from them. So the connectedness learning principles is that learning is a process of connecting nodes or information sources. Learning may reside in non-human appliances like computers. Capacity to know is more critical than what is known. That ability to learn. So I think with my students, I think if I can teach them how to learn, if you get what I mean, if I can give them an ability to learn and amass knowledge and to be resourceful in amassing knowledge, that's far more important a skill than me downloading everything I know about marketing. Because everything I know about marketing is on the World Wide Web. There's hardly anything that's ever been new in my brain about marketing. I've learned it from textbooks, I've learned it from what I've read, I've learned it from gurus, etc., etc. So everything that I can tell students, they can actually find that on the web. So then what's my role as an educator? I feel redundant. But I'm not, because what I see my role as an educator is encouraging them to be curious, encouraging them to be resourceful, encouraging them to go out and find the knowledge, sift through the knowledge. So I do a bit of scaffolding. I try and find useful things, credible sources of information, but really I'm just opening their eyes up to, there's a whole world of information out there, you bring it to me. So, for example, I'm sorry I've forgotten your name.
Oh, it's Lynn.
Lynn. With our consumer behaviour course that we're just developing for the Masters, we've got 2 subjects in there, well 3 actually, the one on digital media, but we've called it the engaged consumer. You can't find a textbook on it.
Yeah, it's a great title.
But it's about bringing together all the ways in which we connect with consumers, co-create with consumers. Sorry?
Connected consumer.
The connected consumer. Okay, the connected consumer. And the other one is the concerned consumer or the mindful consumer. The mindful consumer, which is all about how consumers are now more concerned about ethics and altruistic motivations. You can't find textbooks in these things so per se, there's probably a few. But what you're relying on then is for the students and for you to go out and find that information out there in what's actually happening right now in the real world of marketing. Because companies are so far ahead of academia, it's ridiculous. So, teaching students out of a textbook, the students are going to go, yeah, well that's boring. Tell us something that's really interesting. Nurturing and maintaining connections is important ability to see the connections between fields and ideas, up-to-date, accurate knowledge. So social media allows all this connectivist type paradigm to occur if we use it carefully. So, my doctorate and masters and whatever have all been about technology-enhanced learning, and in particular how academics adopt and integrate these technologies into their learning practices. A couple of points I really want to point out here, though, that are important to me. The technology we adopt must be relevant to the students and relevant to the content. Cost effective is so important. We operate in universities which are cash-strapped typically. Australian universities are even more cash-strapped. There's 39 universities in Australia, there should only be 10. So, they're all competing for a very small bucket of money and all trying to get students from overseas because we don't have enough domestic students. Pragmatic. Whatever technologies must be practical, useful, doable, supported. If they're not supported by the university, by the IT team, by learning technologists, you're up a creek without a paddle if you're as bad at using technology as I am. So don't be fooled, here I am, pioneering technology, all this stuff under my belt, but I'm actually quite useless at technology. Just ask Milena, she will tell you, I'm fumbling around, I'm just a learner by watching. Mike will tell you the same, I'm Kathy. I'm just fiddling around, please show me how to do this. But I'm willing to learn, I think that's the difference. And this is the most critical thing, pedagogically sound, not using it just because it's a bell and a whistle. So when I use my Facebook page, I'm not uploading flippant, silly things. You know, occasionally the students do, that's fine, that's their fun space. I love the Jollyology or whatever it was, the School of Jollyology. I'm all in for fun and learning. If learning's not fun, why would people go on learning? You know, we only keep doing what's fun, don't we? So I'm all for making it fun. E-learning experience that reflects students' current ways of accessing and digesting information. Well, hello. Do students digest information by reading big fat books and looking at black and white PowerPoint slides? I don't think so. So why are we so far behind? Why are we still seeing university lecturers with black and white PowerPoints, you know, bullet point PowerPoints with nothing visual, nothing moving, nothing dynamic, nothing right brain engaging? Why are we still seeing that? You know, it's just not how students access and digest information. And the other thing is, oops, see I'm useless at technology, can't even press the right button. And the other thing is thinking about their modal preferences and learning styles. Just because you and I as an academic or, you know, or we used to call them a HD student, what would you call them, a first class student, learnt by reading and writing, because that's what, you know, really smart people do. That doesn't mean our learners learn that way. Many of our students are very visual, they're very oral, they're very kinesthetic. They learn in different ways, and we need to be more responsive to that. So my goal is to provide an enriched, current, so the textbook doesn't give me what happened last week, you know, the little girl who uploaded a letter from Lego saying why is Friends showing girls lazing around in the beach and being in a cafe, whereas it shows boys as being engineers and scientists. You know, so a 7-year-old girl writing to Lego complaining about why they're depicting girls through their toys in this way. That's current, that happened last week. My students who are studying Lego this week in marketing strategy as a company, you know, and how it develops its marketing strategy, that's not going to be in some textbook from 2011 that I'm using. So up it goes on Facebook, have a look at this, you know, go in there, look at the bright pictures, look at the interesting responses. So relevant, inclusive. It's inclusive because it includes those different learning styles. In Australia, I had a lot of English second language students. In my postgrad course, I still do. And I think that sometimes these medias are quite inclusive of them. They're not about being really articulate in the English language. They can upload things and make a brief comment. They can, you know, they don't feel so intimidated in that environment. Interactive and engaging, I think, is all what it's about. Okay. I feel like I've said enough for a bit. Has anybody got any comments or thoughts along what's already been said? Keep going? You're not bored with me yet? No. Okay, well after saying I should be engaging, I'll try to be. Okay, so the thing is though, the bottom line is for us as educators is, can this social media actually achieve any better learning outcomes? Well, if all you focus on is cognitive learning outcomes, you may argue, well, it's a waste of time, students get diverted from what they really should be doing. I've heard all those arguments. But for me, it's not just about cognitive outcomes, it's also, learning is about social outcomes. So if you understand the socio-constructivist model of learning, you understand that we learn from one another, we learn through sharing our experiences, our perceptions, etc., etc. So in my model of learning, certainly social media allows these socio-cognitive learning outcomes. It also helps to develop student skills, because if you think about it, what do we want from our students? We want them to be creative, we want them to be engaged, we want them to have skills in electronic communication, we want them to be comfortable in the use of technologies. These are important graduate skills. So by using these types of technologies in our learning, allows students to develop that. Because students don't feel isolated, perhaps they feel more connected, perhaps we can increase our retention and progression. So this is an important goal for the university, because of this sense of personalisation and connectedness. And lastly, because my aim as an educator is to inspire people to be lifelong learners, as my brother calls me the degree junkie, After 5 degrees, he decided I was a degree junkie. Actually, I went for, I have a doctorate in education, and I went to see the Associate Dean in Research for my research plan. He said, are you thinking about doing a PhD? So what do you reckon? No. No thanks. Not doing a PhD. Oh, where are we going here? Oops, sorry. Well, what happened?
Press the wrong button.
I pressed the wrong button.
Oh, that's the right button.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Matsu. This is we have a Malay in every room to help me. All right. So some of you have seen this before, but I just wanted to reiterate it again. In adopting any educational technology, whether that be social media or any other type of educational technology, we should not be focusing on the technology. We should be focusing on the thing that we want to achieve through the technology. So whether it's online or on campus or blended learning, the things we most want to achieve with our students is a sense of connection, interaction, inclusion and personalisation. So if you think about the on-campus experience, we can certainly have that connection with our students. We can learn their names. As an educator, I try to learn every single student's name if I can. Very difficult with some of the Thai and Taiwanese students, I have to admit, but I try very hard to try and remember their names, because that sense of connection and personalisation is very important to them.
How did it work, Tom? How many students do you have in Australia?
In Australia, I could have had, I couldn't learn 500 students, no. But if I had a tutor group, I would know all their names. I mean, with my strategic marketing tutors last year, I had 59 students and I knew every single person's name. And the students used to say to me, how do you remember our names? And the first thing I said is because it's important to me to remember your name.
And second time you remember, like when I say first time and second time you call me my name, I was like, how is it possible? You're really good at this. I experienced this.
I have little tricks. They say if you use someone's name 3 times, you don't ever forget it. So if I say, and what is your name?
Debbie.
Seville. Oh, nice to meet you, Seville. And where do you come from, Seville?
Yeah.
So if you use their name 3 times like that, apparently it sticks. So if you had trouble learning names, just remember that little trick. Doesn't work with you. So you might need some little analogies. Seville, from Seville, she looks Spanish. You do this sort of thing, even though that's not true. You know, you use little techniques.
Yes, thank you. Oh, and Facebook does help, because
then
you have the images with the contextualized.
And you know what I love? I showed it to my husband because I've set up my Facebook site for this semester. So last semester I had 59 students, 55 of them on my Facebook site. This semester I have 92. It's going to be a bit challenging. Don't know why I've got so many more students this year, but anyway. So now I've set up the Facebook site. I haven't even had a lecture. I've already got 35 signed up for the Facebook site. But you know, I showed my husband and I said, this is what I love. Look at all their gorgeous little pictures across the top, you know? Little pictures of them with their girlfriends and their boyfriends and their cat. It just makes me want to love them. So I think, you know, and the same with me. They'll obviously go on my Facebook site and see me sort of sitting there with my Australia Day t-shirt on with my Fosters and think, well, she's a real person, you know. She's not some straight-laced, obviously, you know, that's because that happens to be on my cover photo. I don't let students access my normal photos, but if you upload a cover photo, it's going to become public. Warning, warning. So, you know, just think about that. Where are we up to? Okay, so connection. So obviously through social media, topical relevant information, current real life, opportunities for connecting, students connecting to one another, students connecting with the world. Interaction, engaging and involving, sharing, commenting, liking. You could put in surveys and polls. Elvira and I are talking about why don't we occasionally pop a little poll, see if that gets students more engaged, you know, because they want to see whether their response was similar to others. Inclusion, different learning styles and modal preferences, convenience, access, flexibility. They can access their Facebook page anytime, any place, in the middle of the night, etc. Personalisation, regular communication. I try to post up to my Facebook at least something every other day, or twice a week at least. It depends. At the beginning of the semester I might be a bit more active until the students get rolling, and then once they get rolling I take a step back. I'll tell you some other things I do with it later. This whole issue, you know, of developing rapport with our students and social presence, and responsiveness. When my students have an assignment, they upload a question to Facebook, it immediately pops up in my email and I see it almost immediately, because I don't know about you, but I sit there watching television with my iPad on my lap while I'm working, my iPad's sitting there with my, you know, I'm just like on there all the time. So I can almost immediately respond to students' responses. And when I respond to a response on Facebook, it pops up on all the other students who've probably got the same question going on in their head, and they've also got that immediate response. All right. So why do I use it? Because I really want to be connected with my students. The older I get, the more I realise it's important to be connected with them, because I don't want to lose touch of where they're at in their headspace, because, you know, I don't want to become old in my headspace so that I can't connect with them and relate to them. I know from my teaching that the more accessible and approachable I am, that the more comfortable and safe they feel in the learning environment. And it's not that I'm not strict, I'm strict, aren't I, Sybil? I'm strict. I don't allow, you know, talking, I actually don't really allow mobile phones, which sounds a bit strange, but I say if you're looking at your mobile phone, it's because you're looking at my lecture slides, or you're Googling a site that I've just spoken about. You're not playing on your Facebook site while I'm teaching. So I'm pretty old-fashioned and strict, but on the other hand, I like them to know that I'm a real person and I'm accessible and friendly, and that's part of knowing their names as well. Being responsive, quickly, and Facebook's just so easy to use. Blackboard discussion board does my head in. I really can't stand it. I've been using them since, what, when did Blackboard first come in? Back 2001 or something? Oh, even before that. And it's never ceased to do my head in. I've tried every trick in the book to get the discussion board working. And I know Elena does a better job of it me than this, because she's told me, and I've observed it. But I just can't seem to work in that space, and Facebook works for me just so much better. Sharing current information. So when I'm talking, for example, it's in the second week of semester, I talk about a core business process and good business practice being about companies being innovative. So I Google, world's most innovative company. Up comes this fabulous site from Forbes, so it's credible, right? 2013 most innovative companies. What was the most innovative company in 2013? You tell me. Not Apple? Samsung? Not Samsung?
Google.
Not Google. In fact, those companies were actually quite well done. Nike.
No.
Nike was the most innovative company for its little band that says all your activity for the day. What do they call it?
Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean? The little band. And also some shoes and some stuff like that. So what do? I get excited then. I go, great. I upload it to my because I've got a Facebook site for my marketing strategy and Facebook site for contemporary issues and marketing. I upload it and I say to the students, you know, so guess who's the most innovative company? You can't resist but to go in and have a look, find out who that is. And, you know, so you've got this complete currency of saying, we're talking that innovation is important for companies, and here is the evidence from right now today that the best companies are the innovative companies. Apple is obviously high up there. Sharing ideas and examples so they can learn together. We can co-create knowledge this way. For example, I was talking about co-creation with customers and talking about co-branding. And up came, the students came up with these fantastic examples of co-branding. You know, of how fashion designers were designing covers for iPads, and fashion designers were getting on the Coca-Cola cans with fashion designers on them, and all these wonderful examples of co-branding. And so I learned from them, they learned from one another. Keeping in touch with where students' interests lie, you know, the sorts of stuff they upload tells you very quickly what's going on in their head, what they're thinking about, what they're enjoying. You can stay so much more in touch. And this is the big beauty. I still have students from last year posting things, not so much now, but on the old website, because Blackboard disappears at the end of the course, right? Facebook is there. It stays there. They can still stay connected with their whole social marketing group from last year because they're all still in the same page if they want to. So here's just an example from last year. One of my students who uploaded an ad that he thought was a cool way of promoting a mature product. I can't remember exactly what it's about now, but these are the sorts of things that you can do, and all the sorts of things that I do. If I put an announcement or an assignment discussion, I duplicate it in Blackboard. That's critical because some students don't use Facebook, so it's critical to duplicate important information like that. But there's so many things that you can add up now. For my course evaluation, I had 55 students and 29 of them responded to my course evaluation. That's quite high for an online course evaluation. Yeah. And I attribute that to the fact that, apart from putting in SurveyMonkey, which is easy for them to use, I put the link up on Blackboard and in the Facebook page. And every now and again I sent them, something akin to a smiley face saying, please, you'll make me happy if you fill out the course evaluation. Mm-hmm. And you can do that in a sort of a soft way through Facebook. I don't know about you, but through Blackboard I feel so formal.
Yeah.
I feel so correct. Whereas through Facebook I feel I can just be a bit me, like more conversational. So this was the strategic marketing from last year. I've got a new one this year. Why has that happened? I haven't done anything this time. Is this because it's been on for too long, do you think?
Check the input button.
The what
There
one?
should be an input button there. It's not that I know, I've just had trouble for longer with these.
PowerPoint crash.
Facebook. Facebook killed it. Sorry, we'll just go back to here. This doesn't usually happen to me, so I'm not quite sure. What are we up to? Okay. So I did ask them. What's happening?
You can see it in this view for some reason, but when you try to put it into the full view, it doesn't seem to work.
Let's try again. Let's try. No, it doesn't like it.
It doesn't like that slide.
Guess maybe we can just
We can see it like that.
We can see it like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry about that. So I did, I got feedback, and as you can see on ratings out of 5, on just about everything I asked them about the Facebook, they were very positive about it. So this encouraged me, because to be quite frank, after my Australian experience, where all the students had liked everything I said, and had shared, and had commented, and had uploaded stuff, I was a bit despondent about my UK experience with Facebook. But then when I asked this feedback, they were also positive about it. And in fact, in the written feedback or comments, quite a few things were said, things like the Facebook post was great, really engaging, I loved it. So I thought, just because they're not active on it doesn't mean they're not enjoying it or liking it. So I'm persevering. I enjoyed the interaction, I liked the friendly approach. I think it added to that whole sense of community.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just wondering, maybe I missed that when you said at the beginning. The students in Australia, they were campus-based students or online students?
No, they were campus-based students.
Okay.
Yeah, so exactly the same
So
thing,
exactly
really.
the same.
Third year marketing
wasn't as if
students
they were
on
only
campus.
connected,
No, the
yeah.
same type of student.
That's interesting.
I just wonder if there's more concerns about security and privacy here. Do you think there are?
Yeah, more reserved.
What are they worried about? When they like something, what are they concerned is going to happen?
I know, for example, when I like something, you get notifications when other people start liking it. So I just don't put likes because I don't want to be bothered with all the notifications.
Yeah, you can change
Of that
your
conversation,
notifications, I
yeah.
guess, yeah. Yeah, see, I didn't come across that in Australia, so I just wondered, maybe it's a function of larger population. Maybe UK people have much larger groups of friends and networks or something, and therefore get more traffic. I don't know. I just wondered if they were worried about security issues or something.
I was thinking they are afraid to be normal with a lecturer, afraid to be
okay.
themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Actually, that's probably quite true, because I find the students here exceedingly polite to me. Not that they weren't polite in Australia, but they're more casual.
Especially when there is an evidence, because it's recorded, to do something silly.
Yeah,
They kind of try to avoid that space.
yeah.
Because on Facebook, they are themselves, and once they kind of really enjoy it, they are themselves, and they just think, okay, I will avoid that page and commenting on something, rather than writing something silly.
Yeah. So how do we overcome that?
The things for my station, like if I attend the group on Facebook or I upload picture and I say like, oh, don't gonna see it. So like, she's my lecturer. It's about I think the Turkish culture. And when I was in Turkey, and professor, doctors are just there because we have high power distance. So it's because of that. Like, I don't want my lecturers to see my pictures and crazy stuff, parties, pictures and something like that.
Yeah, I mean, when you join a group, I don't see your personal page.
Yeah, maybe they
Likewise, you
don't
don't
know.
see-
I didn't know as that. I thought
Yeah, see,
you
I
were
don't
gonna
see your
it.
personal page. When you join a group, I still can't get into your personal page. And likewise, you can't get into mine.
It all depends on how they've set their security level.
The
yeah.
security set up,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So, so I've not done this before in the classroom. So this is something special on Facebook called a group Facebook.
Oh, sorry, yes, I
Yeah.
create a group.
And therefore that is just the people who come, you can't see their other Facebook pages.
No.
Oh, that's great.
So they asked me to
Oh, you
add
can?
them to...
No, you can't. But
It depends on the security,
Yeah.
how they've set up their security.
Yeah, you
If
need
level.
they
to
have
set
set
up-
up their security.
Yeah.
If most people that aren't au fait with the system, they just leave it open. So
Right.
like,
So you might
Go
want to
straight
say
in.
to your students, check your security because I don't really want to see your private pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mind you, I've never yet
No.
even tried to go into a student's private page and
Yeah.
only observe what they do. I just always check my own to make sure the students can't see. You can go into your security settings of who sees my stuff,
Yeah.
and then you can go in and view as a certain person or view as public and see what other people can see on your Facebook page. So I noticed actually there were a couple of open comments because there are open posts, public posts that I commented on. So I just go then back through my activity and delete those posts.
Oh, you can delete them. Right. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So I guess you need to feel a bit confident that you're managing your security settings. But maybe this, Gelly, we need more of a, rather than people like me talking about experiences, maybe we need more of a, a session on how to use Facebook and this security settings and maybe instructions for students as well. Maybe we need that type of thing as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because as we grow to use this more and more, and as we've got extended inductions, I'm just thinking that gives us some things to do. I know centrally IT, I hear, is going to bring back their IT inductions, and then in the last few years, learning technologists have been doing a lot of sort of around how to use the VLE kind of inductions. But certainly through TELM, maybe we can start thinking about how we can help students.
it's a lot easier now.
start using.
Yeah. The privacy settings on Facebook's a lot easier now.
Lot easier.
It's literally friends only, public, or keep to yourself type thing.
Yeah.
So.
And I'd have to say, in my experiences, I have never had any invasion of my privacy. I've never had a student post anything that upset me or that I thought was inappropriate. I don't know whether it's the tone of how you manage the thing, but I've never, all these fears that people have never materialised for me. So
I don't think it's the technology. I think I've spent the last couple of days going through student union feedback actually in their survey, and one of the key messages that was coming across is stop reading out PowerPoints at us in lectures. We wanted to be interactive.
Yeah.
Literally that came up time and time again.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if students are used to having the to and fro relationship with academics and actually thinking it's okay to say, well, I think this, or
Yeah.
and actually contributing because they're not used to it. They're used to sitting and receiving, and I think it starts still there, doesn't it? Even like their interactions online, it's easier and it's a nicer environment. But if that's not how you're used to being taught, it's another step forward.
And it goes from school level. You know, still in schools they're not allowed to access Facebook. It's all blocked. So coming here and being exposed to this is like, I should be careful. Why is it like that?
Certainly my previous job, which was more FE, all the data sheets running in, the students, Facebook was very much their social place, not a workplace. And they didn't want simple as that.
Yeah, but you know, as I said, 55 of my 59 signed up, rolled up, and you know, I've got 1/3 of them already signed up for the next section, even though I haven't had a lecture with them yet. So it's the uptake doesn't support.
Well, that's the experience we had,
Yeah.
because we didn't try it.
I think that's moved on though, because I think they understand. I think that they understand now that Facebook is used for businesses, it's used for groups. It's not just a personal space. That there are separate functions for Facebook. So I think students are perhaps picking
It's
up on
also
that.
making them aware when they come to apply for a job as well, because now these businesses are checking out Facebook accounts. If you don't tie down your personal photos and you've got drunken shenanigans or whatever.
Yeah.
I want an employee like that. Thank you very much. We had a lot of fun.
It's all about managing the security permissions,
Yeah.
and if we don't have the time to stop and look at the security permissions, then it becomes a threat. But before we even had the opportunity to change different security permissions, so it would be so much easier, I had to create a Facebook page for me as a professional, and a Facebook page for me, for my relatives, friends, so where I can safely upload any picture of myself.
So linking between the two.
I'm not linking the two, I'm a friend of both. I mean,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, when I tweet or publish things, I publish them on the professional Facebook one, because my subject interests are related to my job, my research, and they should be more relevant to the students or anyone else who is.
I think it might be a good idea, John, with all your experience, to create a Facebook page for your colleagues where people can share their questions and concerns about how to use Facebook.
That could be a great idea.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's no better way to show people how to use a technology than to use the technology to show them how to use it. It's like, you know, creating an ice cream to show people how to use ice cream. So I think that's a good idea. And if I get some time this year, I might do that. Students did say that they found posting up articles beneficial. It was the first time I'd used Facebook to help in my studies, and it was useful. Adding examples helped to solidify my understanding. I liked it, up to date, great lecturers. Higher engagement, I think it's very helpful in helping us to learn. Jenny, I found this most interesting, engaging unit, and then immediately afterwards the Facebook group and discussion board were very effective. So they connected the unit, the enjoyment of the unit, with this social media activity. Should we continue to use it? Well, they said it worked well. And this person said, I was sceptical. I found it to be very helpful keeping in contact with the lecturer as a form of discussion about the assignment. And Facebook was a great addition, and I think it should become the norm. So these are what BU students, fourth-year marketing students, are saying about Facebook. This was my one back in Australia, and as I said, the students were far more interactive and far more willing to upload things. So I think it'd be quite useful actually to do a survey of these students to find out what their concerns are, why they're not perhaps as engaged. So you can see though the uptake was high, enjoyment was high, most useful. They loved the fact that they could get immediate responses about the assessment, links to campaigns, discussion about campaigns. Did you feel more connected with students? Well, mostly they agreed. Did you feel more connected with the unit leader? Totally agreed, really. That was the biggest plus. Would you like other courses to use Facebook? Strongly agree. So I guess this is saying they're with it.
Yeah.
They like it. Do you think it added enjoyment to the course? Did you learn more? It was really helpful, especially when the assignments were due. Helpful tips and information. Found it most useful when they love it for the assignment. It was much easier and convenient than having to email the tutor with every question, so it provided them with some level of convenience as well. This part, the fact that students are asking the same questions other students also want to know, and saves Dawn telling 10 people the same answers, so, you know, which was great for me. It's convenient and easy and a lot more convenient than Blackboard, so they sense the functionality of it too. So, in terms of success, I think it is important to get the students involved really early. Last year, I got one of the group members to set up their group, but this year I bite the bullet and did it myself. But you can, if they do, make sure they add you as admin so that you can monitor and add members. I put an announcement on my BU, Facebook page is now available, tra-la, you know. First lecture, I'll put it up again, sorry. I encourage members to and acknowledge contributions. So in the first lecture, because one of my students has already posted something up, I will showcase that in my first lecture. And I'll go, where's Rianne? Okay, there you are. Thanks, Rianne, for uploading this fantastic example. Because I uploaded the thing about the little girl that complained to Lego. And she came back and uploaded about a little boy that a year ago had lost one of his little ninja toys. And he'd emailed Lego to say, could they send him another one? Well, Lego were in a bit of a dilemma, because if they sent every little kid that lost one of their ninja toys a new ninja toy, they'd go out of business, right? So they created this whole scenario of pretending that they were the head of the ninja tribe. And the head of the ninja tribe had been asked for his wisdom and advice, basically. And he decided that this would probably be a one-off, because this is the only time this little boy would lose something. And so in this case, they felt that they could send one. You know, but it was just the beautiful way they dealt with it. And so it's the reason why it's useful, and I've responded to Rianne saying, thanks Rianne, this is an excellent example of how social media can be used to build customer goodwill. So acknowledging their contribution, spinning it off into another, and, you know, sort of then I'll put that up on the lecture on Thursday and say, you know, this is the great sort of stuff we can share and we can learn, and great examples, so showcasing it a bit. Make sure you're active, because if you just create the page and then just forget about it, it's not going to happen. If they don't see you on there, they've got no great incentive to get onto it. And even though they don't like things and comment, I always like their contributions and I always comment. So maybe if I do that, they'll feel safe. As I said, nothing ever happened to me from liking a Facebook comment yet. So the only time I've had a backlash from liking a Facebook comment was when I told my dad off for saying something which I thought was racist. And then I got a barrage. But anyway, apart from that, you know, mostly it's all been good. But be mindful, not every student has a Facebook account, and what can we do? We can't go and say thou shalt have a Facebook account. So what I will do at my lecture on Friday is I'll say, right, well, you know, you probably know we've got a Facebook. I realise not all of you have an account. Do you realise that you could create a profile for yourself that you just purely use for your studies? You don't have to use it for your personal life. That's an option. However, if you don't want to use Facebook at all, that's fine, because the important information will also be uploaded to Blackboard. You'll just need to go to the discussion boards to find it. So that's how I'll deal with that. My co-teacher, she doesn't like Facebook and doesn't want to be involved. So that's fine. How we work that is she's perfectly happy to have the Facebook site, but as long as I monitor it and I deal with it. So I just deal with it. That's my space, and then she has another job. So, you know, we just work it out that way. Obviously, your privacy is really important. You don't ever add a student as a friend. That's obvious. Set your privacy sections. Check every now and again on security who can see your stuff. You know, check that out. You need to do that for your own personal life anyway. And keep it strictly course related. Don't get into social stuff. And set the tone early. about what the page is about and how to respond in constructive, positive, useful ways. And as I said, I've never ever had a problem. Of course, there's lots of other tools, Twitter that I don't understand, but I'm learning. LinkedIn, which I tend to use more for my professional life, but I'm sure there's applications and certainly should be encouraging our students to build their profiles in LinkedIn. YouTube, of course, but basically I use YouTube for embedding in my lecture slides and also for just creating links into my Facebook site. Wikis and blogs. So I have had some experience with wikis. I've used wikis at postgraduate level for reflecting on readings and actually for assessment purposes. So I actually assessed their reflections and assessed their contributions and assessed their reflections to others' contributions. And this semester I've created wikis for all my groups to upload their group work into. So it's a learning experience for me how that will all happen. I actually haven't quite learned how to get them to be able to see their wiki yet, but I'm learning. Any of you probably had more experience than me with that. This was about the wiki, they were happy with it. All right, so in terms of a bit of discussion, so that I don't have to do any more talking, I was thinking about using, how do you say this, Neil? Gagné? How do you say that?
Gagné?
Gagné. It's French, is it? Yeah. Gagné's 9 steps of instruction, because one of the things we've been thinking about in developing online courses for our MBA program is thinking about how we apply these steps of instruction. But I thought it might be useful to maybe have a chat about how we could use social media for gaining attention, informing about learning objectives, getting them to recall prior knowledge, presenting the material that we're teaching them, providing guidance, eliciting performance practice, providing informative feedback, assessing performance, and enhancing retention and transfer. So if you look at those 9 steps of instructional design, I can see opportunities through social media for all of those. So did you want to have any discussion about that, or how would you think that maybe we could do that? Did you want to do that in some groups? Or do you want to just do it all together?
I'm so
Good all
sorry.
together.
Thank you so much.
See, Lynn's got to go back to London.
Yes,
We're not going to transport
at the moment. I have to
Yeah.
get my access. But thank you so much for putting me in touch.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Thank you. I apologise for interrupting.
You're
Sorry,
Thank you.
deserting you.
See you, Elaine. We'll send you the link to the recording. Fine, thanks very much. All right, any thoughts on that? Are there any steps there that you think would be difficult to achieve with social media? For obviously, let's look at the obvious one. Obviously, we can gain attention with it, because it immediately pops up on the students' emails or whatever. How do you think it could be used to inform about learning objectives, for example?
Post about that, couldn't you? Oh.
You could. I think I've challenged myself with this actually, to be honest, because I was thinking, well, why would you be using social media to inform about learning objectives? Aren't they boringly stated in appropriate Bloom's taxonomy or whatever it's called in the unit guide, according to our assurance of learning and quality assurance? You know, why would you be going there again in social media? And then I thought, I know exactly why you'd go there again in social media. Because you would do it in a way that it's meaningful. The students don't read the unit guide. They don't read their learning objectives. So I thought you could get your learning objective, whatever it is. You could put it into nice conversational tone and give them an example of how what they're doing in their assessment or whatever matches up to that learning objective. So you could actually work with the learning objectives to make them relevant and meaningful to the students, instead of something that we typically do, let's all confess, just to tick the boxes for quality assurance.
Getting the students to say what they think the learning outcomes are, what their perception of the learning objectives are for that
What
year.
they want to achieve with the course. Absolutely. So that's more of a constructivist type of model. You know, what do you want to get out of this
This is
course?
what I posted on Facebook page. We just started the unit, and I just asked them how how are you feeling so far? What are you planning to achieve from this unit, and what you expect from us? No comments so far, but we'll see.
When you start.
No comments so far, but do you know what? You've sent a very strong message to your students that you're interested in what they want to learn and what they're thinking about. And that immediately creates that lovely bridge of approachability to you, that you're interested in what they want to get out of your course. So you don't always have to get feedback. It can be just about you setting the tone, you know? We're learning together type of tone. I'm not the big expert saying thou shalt learn this. By the end of this completion of this module, you will demonstrate, critically evaluate, you know. All of that, I appreciate why that needs to be done, but I think it has more mileage for us as educators than it has for the students in terms of their outcome. Sybil, can you remember reading any learning objectives?
I must say that I don't remember learning or reading them, but aren't they there for a purpose? And if we are going to make it so very, so lots of fun and easy to read, and they're there on Facebook, aren't we taking, the students away from actually a part of their lives that they have to learn how to deal with?
Yeah.
Because it is important that academics sit and structure programs and think about those learning objectives for a reason. And I'm not saying it has to be top down always. Is this collaboration?
Yeah.
And then maybe read about the objective, and then do you think that that's what you're going to be learning? Did you learn that from it? But not always taking them, saying, or translating it to Facebook and inviting them only to Facebook and not.
I think it's about a balance of the two. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I think all these academic procedures and bureaucracy, it's so dynamic and everything changes constantly. I think because of all these bureaucratic things and learning objectives, which we said 4 years ago, and they are obsolete now.
True, but the students will be able to tell you that they are not learning that objectives, and then you could work on the objectives. That's the collaboration.
The way I see it as well is this would be an extension of those documents. It's not instead of. So not to give the students the impression that you don't need to read the unit spec. I tell you what you need to know, and here's how we're going to construct that. It's an extension of that, because one of the things I try to do is to put the learning objectives into perspective by saying how it might apply in a job environment, particularly at post-grad and post-experience like the MBA, where you're going to help them understand how what they're learning now could be applied. Because all of the time, as a learner, you want to know what's the benefit of what you're learning. I want to get a job at the end, or I want to work as, or I want to build my skills so I can apply myself in different sort of employment settings. But it's an extension of that document, and bringing that document to life to say, actually, these are some of the things you could do. Or if you're looking to be a marketing researcher, maybe, this bit of the unit particularly relates to you, and this bit of the assessment. So, but you need a whole raft of other things that you need to learn about as a basis. So, it's helping the students engage, or learners engage, with contextualizing the learning objectives.
For example, there was a really good article, was it either you or Milena sent around a couple of days ago about graduate skills and attributes and what companies were looking for.
Yeah, I forwarded it, but Milena sent it. Yeah.
And so you could sort of say, okay, one of the learning objectives of this course, look at this article, which reflects why this learning objective is so important for us to achieve. So I think that's supportive rather than, I'm not suggesting that we dumb them down or, don't get them to think seriously about the learning objectives. But there's ways, I think the word you used, which was brilliant, bringing them to life.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's, Stimulating recall of prior knowledge, an important aspect of learning. So how could we use social media to get students to link their prior knowledge and experiences to their current learning experiences? I have never done that, but I'm thinking it must be possible to talk to people, maybe to ask students to talk about their previous jobs or their previous, and how that links with what they're doing.
As part of the stuff we used to do on the MBA, one of the introductions, usually with the first lesson of the tutor, seeing them for the first time, would be to ask students to introduce themselves and say a little bit about what they used to do, what sort of jobs they were in, what sort of context. And often you see actually in the personal statements, rather than when they get here, how are you going to add value or contribute to the learning community. So, yes, you've got all the qualifications, but how are you going to engage with it? And there were really useful statements that my background is this, so I could help, my fellow learners in this way and so on. And so some of that tend to happen even before they get here.
So while you're talking, I'm thinking perhaps LinkedIn would be a great social media for that particular aspect. To encourage the students to link up with one another in LinkedIn.
It's the obvious thing we do when we're doing group work as learners. What are you good at? Okay, you do that bit. He's good at numbers, so you deal with the number bit. I deal with it. So that's how we naturally break ourselves up during a sort of team setting environment. And you're right, that would be a really good thing to do, to get LinkedIn, to get, specifically maybe postgraduate, post-experience, to get themselves on LinkedIn and then say, right, when it comes to working together, go and see who's got what skills.
And on LinkedIn you can create pages as well like this, like Facebook one.
Yeah. So at postgraduate level, maybe that might be a way. I did I'm interested in food waste, and I posted to my Facebook for my friends the other day. I would waste less food if, and then just left it open. And I just got this myriad of responses of how they would waste less food if. So I'm thinking, you could put something as simple as the main thing I could contribute to this group is, and just see what they come up with. They might say my experience in this, my da 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 da. But if you just get them to complete a sentence like that, you might actually get the ball rolling, because it doesn't say anything. They almost have to complete the post for you. So in terms of getting engagement, so this might be one of the intervention strategies we look at.
And I think, like you said, for postgraduate kind of audience, because it's so international, in class they tend to just be quiet and not speak up. So I hope, because in my previous experiences it didn't work with Twitter. I agree that Twitter perhaps is for different purposes, but I will see whether this year they might kind of talk about themselves, online rather than here, face to face.
I think it's very much supplementary, but you can actually achieve quite a lot of things just through simple things like sentence completion, to sort of get where their mind's at, The thing I most want to get out of this course is, and then see what comes up. I don't know. Where are we up to? Present the material. Well, I think that's probably, you can provide all of that contextual stuff. Guidance for learning, for example, I'll put up stuff like, have you considered using tables in your report to reduce your word count? Have you considered, I just give them little tips and things. Elicit performance practice, so getting them to actually do what you're teaching them. Any thoughts on that? How we could use social media to get them to practice what they're learning?
Depends on the topic, I suppose. If it's like researchable, they can then bring it back into the group.
They could create their own little survey monkey. I'm thinking wikis and blogs is probably a good media for this practice. for putting into place what they're learning.
I mean, YouTube videos, they could, depends obviously on topic. Like if they needed to create a small social media campaign, viral campaign, they could do it and put it on YouTube, post it on Facebook.
Or like with my with my strategy students, I'm getting them to work in groups where they have to capture all of their analysis in a blog, and I'm allowing them to be as creative as they want, but one of their pages has to be about their group processes. So they have to actually document their group processes or capture their group processes. So they're learning something about group process and then capturing it, so sort of thinking more meaningfully about group processes. So I suppose that's sort of partially about their performance.
And they could also extend that by presenting it visually by using an infographic program, for example, visually, and then again sharing that back on Facebook. And referring back to what you were saying about informing learning objectives, they could actually almost map that out into an infographic. And then post it back. You could do a competition on Facebook using an app like FanRx to sort of see which group comes up with the best way of explaining in simple language what their learning objectives. So therefore they're picking up on 2 or 3 of those potential steps.
That's brilliant. So have you got experience of using infographics?
In terms of business, yes.
Yeah, see I haven't, so that would be a really useful topic as well, looking at the use of infographics for students.
Visualizer is good as well.
Poor Catherine has got her work cut out for her.
We've got people here with
It's
all this
wonderful.
experience. We should bring it together. And we should
my
use it.
students this year, first year students, used Visualizer to reflect on their experience, and that was incredible.
Visualizer.
Yeah, it's like YouTube video where they can use pictures and drawing. There is a YouTube presentation where they draw the words or pictures. Have you seen one of this?
No, these are all new things to me, so they sound
And
fascinating.
there is a paid version, but there is a free one as well, with limited pictures which you can use for your presentations, but students using them, and it's really fun.
Yeah.
Or they could, again, performance practice and also reflection.
Do you want me to show you one? I will.
Yeah.
Sort of set up something like, a Twitter for themselves, specifically for the duration of their course, which then can be represented visually very quickly by, there's a little program, a free program called Visify, which gives a snapshot of your Twitter stream in terms of anything that you said, your interactions with other people, and they literally condense it down into a 15-second video slideshow, which highlights what you said on Twitter, how you interacted with other people, any photographs you shared, any key learnings that you put up on there. So again, that's a reflective way of looking at their year. And again, there will be something to share on Facebook at the end of the year, because everybody would be interested in everybody else's learning.
Fantastic.
Infographics can be used as well for that other showing your previous knowledge.
Yeah.
I've participated in another session, and we were all asked to, instead of talking a little bit or 5 minutes about ourselves, show an infographic of our knowledge and our previous experiences and career.
Brilliant. That'd be great for the MBAs, I reckon. That'd be fantastic. Did you hear that, Gilly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
I'm
think
trying to
it's
look up some stuff as we speak.
You're multi-skilling
We're
here.
taking, yes.
I think, so I think there's just so many opportunities, really. If you, sorry, it disappeared. Well, there is disappeared. Yeah, but if you think about those 9 aspects of instructional design, there's not one of those that we haven't been able to talk about how social media could help us to work through those things in ways, providing feedback.
Yeah.
Just so easy, isn't it? Thanks guys for all your presentations in the seminar this week. They were really interesting and exciting. Looking forward to next week's seminar. Something as simple as that. Just giving them positive praise, feedback, but also more useful, more constructive feedback on best elements of the assignment with this, things we need to work on of that. Just sort of so instantaneous. I think that's what I like about social media is the quickness of it. Not having to worry about whether they're bedding down into Blackboard and finding the discussion forum and finding things, because that seems to be, with Blackboard it seems to be you have to find things. Whereas with these social media, it appears for them. I don't know, maybe.
I think you're right, going back to your point about the quick feedback to the students. As you know, research shows that we talk about 3-week turnaround here as the absolute maximum. But the research shows as a learner, or actually as most of us that do something and then we look for feedback, it's about 24 to 48 hours. That because the work is fresh in our head. You know, if you've done a report, if you've done an assignment, the work is still fresh in your head. So when you get feedback, you can apply that and reflect on it and hopefully learn from it and really use it for the next time. But beyond that, you're losing actually people remembering what they've done. So by the time you give them the feedback, I can't remember why I said that. I'm sure there was a good reason. You know, we've all done that, and by then it's not so relevant.
Yeah.
So this immediacy of going back, say good presentations and so on, is something I think the students value a lot. Is that what you hear from
Again,
your...
because I have, as I said, spent 2 days going through student feedback.
Yeah,
basically.
I
Again,
looked at
they're
some of
saying
them. Yeah.
they're really looking at, you know, we want that unit feedback. We want something general as well as our individual
Yes,
personalised feedback. We want to know as a group how are we doing, what areas are we all getting wrong, what areas we were doing well in. They want to see that kind of general
It's a
stuff as
generic
well.
feedback.
And
yeah.
that's kind of it, as you say, it's quicker to give in lots of ways for certain assessments that are being
It's just a
carried out.
reassurance.
And it's that reinforces that community
Yeah.
feeling as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They're connected with that group, and this is how
Yeah.
we're all getting on with our studies. So
Did you want to show us something in
Yeah,
your
this is
Yeah.
visualizer.
Visualizer.
So it's reflection of the projects. Visualizer.com, I think, and you just go there and you kind of can use it as a way to, you know, if you're not confident to film yourself, this is the way to present your ideas or reflect or introduce your project. This was assessment for development management competencies for projects. So this was the, they used Wiki to present the whole project and evaluate it. But as part of introducing the whole seminar group, they decided to do this kind of documentary video.
Very good. And the students are assessed for this presentation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have different criteria, and there is like, you know, creativity, obviously they had, because this is the only group who used it, but I just let them know there is this kind of tool, and some of them decided to use it.
This is Visualizer, but is there similar apps for things like infographics?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Visually.
Okay. Right.
I mean, there is a website, infographics again, something, and it's a private business. This guy who created this website, there is limited functionality on what you can do with a free version, but if you want something advanced, you need to pay, I think. But even the standard one is completely fine. I think for lectures we can use it for, putting some infographics on our slides.
So these types of things, in my mind at least, are the sort of things that we need to work forward towards, to using these in ways which can enhance our teaching. And I think by looking at what's happened there. But I think in terms of grounding what we do in pedagogy, I think that Gagne's 9-step instruction can sort of guide us about, for each of those areas, where could we maybe look at using social media. I can feel a paper coming on. A joint paper coming on how we could use social media for that. The other thing is, and I'm not going to go through this because I didn't have time to really think about it enough, but I found this really interesting site on connectivism actually, about what is the role of the educator in networked learning environments. I'll try and put that back into full screen and see what happens. There it is. The idea is that the role of an educator in these environments is different from the role of an educator in the sort of the face-to-face lecture type environment or seminar environment. Amplifying is basically about the fact that if I post up something on Facebook and says, look, here's an example of co-creation or co-branding or the power of social media, by me posting up things like that says to the students, this is important. Okay, this is something that I should know more about, I should read more about, and it sort of just reinforces the message about what maybe some of the more important aspects of the course or the more relevant aspects of the course are. Curating is obviously like a museum curator sort of collecting together objects in a space. Wayfinding and socially driven sense making, that's sort of about bringing our content into the real world, aggregating, bringing together different ideas and links, filtering, working out what is useful, what's not useful, modelling, so good practice, so the way we interact in social media presents a good practice for other students for engaging in that environment, and persistent presence is about that sort of being on, being there, responding, liking, contributing, etc. And I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but I've put the link down the bottom there, and I just think that it is interesting to think about how our role changes, and therefore maybe why some academics are uncomfortable